Hi everybody, it's the Professor, and yes, it's once again the one and only Blue Pill Professor, coming at you from the internet and talking to you about the things that we really care about, namely, the nature of women, and what we are all going to do about it now that we've awoken from our long slumber.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true. Wanted a woman, never bargained for you. Lots of people talking, few of them know. Soul of a woman was created below.
Oh yes, and in case there was any doubt about the veracity of the words of Led Zeppelin, we once again turn our eyes towards Holy Scripture to determine whether indeed a woman's soul was created below. Last week we considered the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, and this week we take you to another Abrahamic religion of Islam and the holy works presented there. For those of you who don't know, the Quran is the most holy book in all of Islam, but there are other inspired works which are widely recognized. Specifically, 4 individuals who wrote what's known as the Hadiths, or the tales and life of the Prophet Muhammad. These 4 authors being Ishaq, Tubari, Bukhari, and Muslim, and they tell stories and tales of the life and times of the Prophet. So from Islam, the author, we have the following Islamic hadith. O women folk, you should ask the forgiveness, for I saw in bulk you were amongst the dwellers of hell. And I love this part. A wise lady said, but why is it, Allah's apostle, that women comprise the bulk of the inhabitants of hell? And the Prophet answered, because you curse too much, and you are ungrateful to your spouses. So once again, there you have it. From the words of Holy Scripture to the ear of Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin. Thank you, guys. So far in this podcast series, we have talked about the true trauma of coming out of the Matrix and realizing all of the lies we have been told. We've covered some of the basics of female attraction. We've covered how to identify and respond to a female shit test. And we have covered some terminology such as alpha, beta, omega, and the concept of frame. And this week, we are going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is the topic of seduction. This is actually a difficult topic to study because it's spread around over a number of books. I begin with The Married Man's Sex Life Primer 2011, written by Ethel Kay, and specifically his chapter 8, Instigate, Isolate, and Escalate, where he gives us a pickup artistry primer. And fellas, don't forget, pickup artistry works on women, and guess what? Your wife is a woman. So let's begin, shall we? And we begin with the concept of instigation. Now, in a pickup artist situation at a bar or whatnot, you instigate by making yourself a sexual being. Make it about sex, make a joke. The English language is great for this, guys. Double entendres are the order of the day. Do it with some subtlety, do it with some grace, and do it with charm. But do it. Talk about sex with your wife. Make dirty jokes. Take advantage of the ever-popular "that's what she said." Touch her suggestively, and when appropriate, give her a smack on the butt. All of these are you instigating, and as Ethel Kay says, you're making a move. But in general, what you're doing is you're making yourself a sexual being. Not a neutered husband, not a blue pill wimp, but a sexy husband who knows what he wants. So then Ethel Kay gives us several examples of instigation. He talks about being playfully mean. And believe me, you should tease your wife every chance you get. It's not mean. They love it, especially if you do it with a smile. It is instigating when you dress up, when you display high value. And we will talk about high value and displays of high and low value in the next podcast. But that's the basic idea. Make yourself a sexual being. Make your marriage about sex. And for new guys, no, don't do this all at once. Begin slowly. Maybe do it once a day, then twice a day, then 3 times a day, until pretty much you're doing it a lot. But start today, move slowly, and build it up. Because what you are basically doing is you are reframing the terms of the relationship. So again, this may take time, may take months, weeks, but begin today. Also, while you're instigating, and just as a matter of course, it's not a bad idea to learn Kino, K-I-N-O. Every man should go to YouTube, put in Kino, and watch those videos for 3 or 4 hours, and it will change your life. Kino is the secret language of women. And in it, you can covertly signal your intentions towards having sex. And at the same time, you greatly spark the tingles. So how do you Kino? You can't really describe it. You have to see the videos. But it basically involves touching your wife, training her to be touched by you. So a basic Kino move, which you see women do all the time, is to touch the other person's elbow that you're talking to. And women do this all the time, elbow, shoulder contact in regular conversation. This is light Kino. It's very non-threatening. And it's basically, to a woman, this means I support whatever you're saying, or I believe you, or I'm on your side. That's basically what it translates to. A very strong, comforting move. And that's about all you're going to want to do for instigation. For the next step of seduction, you need to isolate. You need to get her alone. And I always like to imagine it, you're a serial killer, and you need to get your victim alone. It sounds very simple, and Ethel Kay claims it's extremely simple to do in marriage. I beg to differ. Women who don't want to have sex with their husbands, which is probably most of you guys who are listening in, will try every trick in the book to avoid being alone with their husband. They'll work on their hair. They'll stay up late and watch TV. They'll go to bed early. They'll make sure the kids are in bed with you. You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. So isolation is not quite as easy as Ethel Kay would have us believe. And all I can say is be persistent, be strong, and don't let her bullshit faze you. Isolation is as quick as getting her alone in the bathroom and shutting the door, perhaps keeping eye contact and locking it with an ominous click, at which point you grab your wife and start making out with her. Now, this may or may not lead to sex, and the important thing is to remain outcome independent about whether or not your seduction is successful. The final stage of any seduction, according to Ethel Kay, is escalation, and it means exactly what the word sounds like. You are escalating to sex. Do not pass go. Do not wait to collect $100. And you escalate by touching her. Instead of a fleeting touch on the shoulder or arm, it's a longer touch on the upper arm, perhaps extending to a light rubbing of a single finger up the neck. And I'm not going to describe Kino for you. You need to Google it, as I said, and look up some videos of it, because this is just not something that lends itself to the spoken word all that well. But believe me, guys, when you learn how to Kino, it will change your life. This is something that all women knew how to do, and all women are taught how to do, and no men are taught how to do. In fact, we're taught to avoid this touchy-feely stuff. But this is the secret language of women that you need to learn how to use. Some of the other logistics of escalation include kissing, hot eye contact, holding her tightly in your arms so that she cannot escape, and so on. Now, as far as kissing, Ethel Kay recommends all married couples do the daily 10-second kiss, and I happen to agree with him. You should kiss your wife for 10 seconds every day. You can kiss in an infinite number of ways. But next time you're making out with your wife, try this one. Hold the back of her head in both your hands and gently put her hair between your fingers. Draw her to you and lightly rub the occipital muscles in the back of the neck with your thumbs while you put some light tension on your hair. You use this tension to gently rock her head back and forth while you're kissing. Some girls actually like to have their hair pulled pretty hard, others not so much, so be careful and know who you're dealing with, i.e. your wife. Now, the occipitals are the little muscles just below the base of the skull on either side of the spine. You've got your fingers up in her scalp, holding her hair between your fingers. You've got your thumbs on the occipitals, and now she cannot escape because you completely control her head. Pull her into you for a deep 10-second kiss and take her breath away. Literally. Now, you cannot and should not be escalating to sex every time you do the 10-second kiss with your wife, although it has been known to happen. So instead of escalating right there, I recommend that most of the time you leave her standing after 10 seconds of kissing, preferably panting and disheveled, and then go do something else. You need to create that mystery in her female mind that lets her think that she is the one pursuing you. Remember, perception is reality, especially to a woman. Create the world that you want her to inhabit. Create that world, and she will be yours. Now, as far as the daily 10-second kiss, how do I recommend you approach this quote-unquote negotiation? Because by now you should know that you don't negotiate for sex, and you certainly cannot ever negotiate for passion. Passion is an organic, biological response that can be commanded and induced, but it cannot be negotiated for. However, a kiss is something that can be negotiated for, and that is exactly what I recommend that you do. You negotiate the 10-second kiss. And I suggest that even if you are in the once-a-month 5-minute missionary position sex plan, that you wait until the big event then, while you're kissing your wife. Before you have sex, write the kiss, and tell her that you heard about an idea that people say really helps the marriage, and it only takes 10 seconds a day. If she balks a little bit, argue. We can commit just 10 seconds a day to our relationship, right? Well, if at that point she argues with you, you've got a problem. But in most cases, she's going to agree. Of course, I can do anything for 10 seconds a day. Then kiss her again lightly and tell her, we need to kiss for 10 seconds every day, like this. And then show her. I think it's important when you're enforcing this every day, as I said, that you're not escalating to sex all the time. And in fact, the next few times you should absolutely avoid escalating to sex, to avoid creating the perception in her mind that this creates some sort of covert contract duty. But again, as I said before, it has been known to happen. I believe if you miss a day, somebody's sick, got a runny nose, you don't see each other, then that means the next day you are obligated to kiss for 20 seconds. It's actually kind of fun to keep track of this. On our anniversary, my wife and I kissed for 12 straight minutes to make up for some 72 missed days from flu, sinus infections, and other horrible stuff. I did it before dinner, and the entire dinner she was squirming. And as I read in my book, again, you can only rarely be escalating to sex right away with that 10-second kiss, but it might happen at its hottest, when you least expect it, and more to the point, when you were not maintaining that covert contract of resentment and entitlement in your mind. Again, just saying you might want to consider if that is true, if only the tiniest bit in your relationship. So in conclusion, I want to list some of the books that have helped me throughout my journey to become a pickup artist for my wife. And in spite of what a lot of Manospherians say about Roosh, I believe the two best books on pickup artistry were written by Roosh, specifically Bang and Day Bang, How to Pick Up Girls During the Day. For a slightly more cerebral approach, I recommend The Natural by Richard Ruina. And of course, The Game by Strauss. There really are a ton of books written on the topic, and they all basically say the same thing. Be a strong, masculine, decisive man. Know what you want and go after it fearlessly. Maintain outcome independence, which is to say, if you don't get laid, that's fine. You're not worried about it. Maintain a positive, upbeat attitude and emphasize your strong points. Next week, we will talk about the book, The Art of Seduction, which identifies 9 types of seducers and 18 different types of victims. So when we say emphasize your strong points, work on emphasizing and maximizing the type of seducer you are, while giving due consideration to the type of victim that your wife is. But for now, gentlemen, instigate. Make yourself a sexual being to your wife. Begin slowly, but increase it inexorably. And if she complains about your sex jokes, just treat it like a shit test. Isolate. Get her alone so that you can work your evil will upon her body. And finally, escalate. Touch her intimately. Get her clothes off and close the deal. So that's all I've got for this week, guys. Next week, as I said, we'll get into a little more into seduction and some of the more specifics. Until then, I leave you with the words and wisdom of Robert Plant and Led Zeppelin.
But now's the time to look and look again at what you see. Is that the way it ought to stay?